Good morning, and welcome to the 12 Attitudes and Responsibilities of Mastery. My name is Michael Bailey, and today is August 10th, 2016. It's Wednesday. And we're going to start right here where we left off last week. We're going to start with fear. Attitude is important. Your attitude determines the integrity of your DNA template, and your DNA template determines your path of evolution. Fear is a biochemically carried experiential emotional translation of the God source within, denying ideas, beliefs, judgments, and labels that you hold as energy patterns within the conscious and subconscious mind. These energy patterns direct the biochemical realities through which the sensation of emotional fear is experienced. The experience of fear emerges when you label the benign reality of what is through the distortion lens of polarized duality, while simultaneously denying the existence, love, safety, and infinite power of manifestation inherent to the God source within. As we become more healed, we bring in more of our higher consciousness, which begins to activate our flame bodies, which are parts of our subtle energy body anatomy, and affect the tribal shield of which we're all part, because our personal shields are literally within the larger tribal shield, which itself is ensconced within the larger planetary shield, which is part of the solar shield that all the planets in our solar system are part of, which itself is part of the galactic shield, and up and up and up all the way. It counts what we do with ourselves and our frequency. As we heal ourselves, we help to heal each other, the planet, and other life forms on the planet. Ego and negative ego. Attitude is very important. There are people who are really attached to having the outside persona of it. They can do that, but the only persons they are harming, the only persons they are conning are themselves, because what they have is the content of their consciousness. Those manifest in chemical terms in the DNA in the body, and that body's chemicals will determine whether or not it can actually ascend or not. Before we can heal the shadow, we have to master the ego. Now, ego is not a bad thing. Ego is simply the part of you that looks out on three-dimensional reality here. Your ego goes with your mental body, your mind. Your mental body is the natural CEO of your ego. With the current distortions that humans carry, the shadow body, which are your sub-personalities, your shadow body controls the ego and leads to confusion and a myriad of self-justification patterns. When the ego is directed subliminally by the shadow, it becomes negative ego that runs around in circles with its head cut off, and it blames everybody for its misery. It doesn't know what to do with itself because it feels totally out of control and limited. There are many of us very in touch with that feeling. Negative ego is when the mental body gets confused and creates all sorts of self-justification patterns. We call these coping mechanisms. Because it really believes it is worthless, it has to prove itself. Its worth, it has to prove itself. It has to prove its worth to itself. So it creates all sorts of compensation patterns. For example, because it feels inferior, it walks around being arrogant, and it tries to act really cool because it needs to believe it is really cool, because in truth it feels so horrible, tiny, and pathetic. People with negative ego come from a place of not fully remembering their connection to God. We are all divine beings. We are all created equal. Whether or not we have equal level of this or that, we are all of equal value. We are all blessed. And God really loves all of us. There is a God that loves us, and we have an auto-guidance system built in right within ourselves that will guide us through the worst of anything if we only learn to listen and hear it. You do not need negative ego. Negative ego is to protect the personality when it believes it does not have any connection to anything. It's a personality that feels lost in space-time. The negative ego is what a lot of spiritual traditions and New Age traditions try to annihilate and make it go away. You cannot get rid of it. It is a part of you. What you need to do is learn to heal it and integrate it, not annihilate it. Basically, there are two realities that can be experienced in density: pure love and pure lack of love. Out of lack of pure love comes every negative emotion, every negative response pattern, and every ego compensation pattern. Here, the ego tries to make itself more important, or it gives itself the right to inflict things on others in order to sustain itself. It justifies its existence. Only frightened egos do that. Egos that do not remember their connection to God's source and do not feel it anymore. When you feel the frequency connection between those higher worlds coming all the way down through and into your world, you are never separate from God. You live that and you walk it. You cannot hurt another thing. You also will have enough self-respect to not allow other things to damage you. The best thing we can do to help the planet and anyone else right now is to help ourselves, to begin to heal our own shadows, to begin to not be afraid. Recognize and drill it into your mental body the truth. Fear is a choice. Do not believe this garbage the scientists tell you. There is an energy that comes up from the body. You can label it as anything that you want to. You can label it as a disharmonic energy that just came up from the body. I used to call that fear. I can still call it fear, but it is something that I do not have to process as fear. If you know how to bring in the frequencies and learn to center yourself within your Christos space, bring up your Maharic shield or any of the other types of protective techniques and run it right through that fear space, and you will learn to transmute, not transmit, you will learn to transmute fear. Because what fear is are twisted elementals that are stuck in your shadow body. Learn how to clear that by running what's called the Maharic seal. The job of the ego right now is to be smart enough to know how to plug the rest of the twisted stuff that needs healing into the higher parts of your identities that have the ability to do that healing. The mental body will go crazy in the coming times. If you can come to trust that the universe is always on time and that it always expresses in the divine right manner, the job of the ego is to recognize what that might look like. You can freak out, or you can move the energy upwards and ask for the help of the higher aspects of yourself. We call these higher self, or higher selves is more accurate. If you do not know they are there, chances are you will implode or explode. That's why people freak out. They do not know that they have the resource systems of their higher aspects. This knowledge was buried here on earth so that people would feel disempowered, so the shadow world can reign. With shadow body healing and remembering your connection to God's source, you can re-establish yourself as master of your ego. And something to ponder and think about. Close your eyes and feel where there is any disharmony in your body. Do you feel concern, worry, anxiety, tension? These are all variations of the energy we label as fear. Now, center yourself and begin to slowly breathe. Inhaling, holding, and then gently exhaling. If you know how, bring up the Maharic or any of the other higher frequencies that you've been working with and breathe it into the fear space. Allow yourself to be okay with what you are feeling. Feelings are not facts. They're feelings. Continue to breathe and allow the fear to dissipate on the breath. And a suggested affirmation, which are called linguistic template reprogramming statements. I am my Christos self now. I am the still point of eternal love. I am this. I am. And a lot of this process has to do with learning to trust the inner Christos. This is the Christ within all of us. The need for ego demand is based upon a fear of non-fulfillment of a designated desire. This need naturally releases and genuine peace within emerges when we mature to realize that the personal Christos within knows precisely what experiences are needed to bring each desire and its fulfillment to the highest form of expression. We become a collective of peoples who remember and consistently apply the priority of the inner Christos and approach power delegation through loving, mutually supportive cooperation and co-creation. We do not compete to take power from each other, as each knows the power, feels the loving presence, and trusts the wisdom of the personal inner Christos as it lives within the self and within others. If your personal inner Christos is acknowledged, relied upon, and fully trusted to synchronistically direct desire, timing, and circumstance, your personal needs and desires can be fulfilled to the highest levels at the same time as your personal fulfillment contributes directly to the Christos intention and evolution of the collective. It is herein that the power, beauty, and practicality of synchronicity resides. The need for opinions. The distortions in our templates create barriers in remembering our relationship with the God source within. Instead of going vertical, which means straight up to God's source, we tend to go horizontal, which is, we call it, out to others, externally. This has resulted in our human need for opinions and a complex array of effects that such involvement possesses, as in mass victimization. We do not fully trust that we know what is best for ourselves. Therefore, the need to ask someone else's opinion before we make decisions, or to get a validation of something we did or said. The need for opinions also leads to attachment to an outcome, and is also based on fear of non-fulfillment of a designated desire, or of a feeling of, I am not worthy. The Iani do not have any need for opinions. They have preferences instead, and they understand how to match frequency accretion and frequency holding with an interrelated array of creative intention, such that they are truly independent and detached from actual outcomes. We have all entered this process to a varying extent, and the extent of variation is itself a function of how well we have begun to derive our own personal and practical applications of the principles that the guardians have already shared with us, and, not least, the everyday waking belief in ourselves as increasingly aware, active members of an extended angelic Christos family. Embodying the attitudes of mastery. And the first one is love. And this is a message from one of the members of the A&Rs Council. Beloved ones, choose well. Choose love, and then choose freedom. The first choice is to choose love. Love is the first one. Love is the recognition of the truth of the all-oneness. Love is to recognize that the only truth is that we are all faces of the one. Once you actually recognize that this is true, that it is true that we are all one, everything in manifestation is one God, one being, and that we are all faces of that one God, there really is not any sane choice other than to love all of it. If you loved any piece of it, you must love all of it, because it is the same being. Everything is a face of the one. To make any other choice in a situation other than to act in a loving way that recognizes the oneness in the other person or the other being or the other thing is completely self-destructive. Any harm you would intend to bring upon another, you bring upon yourself, because there is only one self. If you can learn to recognize the love, you begin to be able to choose action over reaction. Reaction is what happens when the victimizer pattern, or VV game, runs rampant, where nobody remembers who was the first victim or the first victimizer. You just get caught up in these, I will hurt you, or I will stop you from hurting me, and to do that, I'm going to have to hurt you first. Choosing love in any moment does not mean to let somebody walk all over you. You're not a doormat. You can choose to recognize when someone else is so out of control that they are not in a space where they can feel love for you right now. And you can still love them to bits right now. And that is okay. Let that be okay. Even though they are not acting toward you the way you wish they would, and they are telling you they will act the way you would like to see them act if you do this, this, and this. That's called bargaining. But you do not want to do this and this and this. They are trying to barter with you. They are trying to take your power. If you see this dynamic happening in your relationships, you can choose love. And you can choose love either close up or at a distance. And truth be told, some people are easier to love at a distance. You don't have to hate them to leave them. It does not mean that you don't love them. It doesn't mean that you don't care. It does mean that I love and care about me too, and I'm not going to let you victimize me, because that is not helping either of us. Love is a state of vibrational harmonization. This means you need to bring to yourself and your consciousness into a co-resonant vibrational pattern with it. Because then you have the power to move frequency into whatever it is you are having a hard time loving, and then you can change it. We have a lot of power. It is with us all the time. It never leaves us. But we have been told and taught that we are powerless, and we believed it. What happens when you tell a race of people who are manifestors, who literally hold a thought pattern, and a thought pattern creates a scalar grid, and that scalar grid creates a template for matter particles to fill out on? So the consciousness of God will rush in. What's called the 15 rays will come in and fill it out for you. That scalar pattern that you set when you thought a thought. What if you wipe the memory of a race like that and then tell it that it's powerless, sinful, that it came from animals, that it has to repent, that it has to bow down because it was bad, that it needs salvation, that only you can provide? What if you tell that race it is pathetic and lowly? If that race is a manifesting race, and that's exactly what human beings are, and they believe what you just told them, and they adopt that belief for their own, they will turn themselves into exactly that. And this is what we have done to ourselves. There is a level of shifting in the emotional body that happens when that stuff starts to sink in. There is a frequency in understanding love to that level. Love is actually a responsibility that we grow back into, and it is one that feels good. When we are operating through and from our divine blueprint, things feel good. However, we are literally driven around by the pain-pleasure principle, running away from pain and toward pleasure. But our pleasure radar is not working correctly. Our pleasure-pain systems are actually twisted, where we feel good from doing stuff that is actually harmful, because what we're doing is we end up feeding the reversals. If you have reversals in your DNA template, and you take in a reverse substance, there is a vibrational co-resonance between the substance and the reversal, and you actually get a feeling of harmonious energy, a feel-good feeling. Eventually, when we get our DNA strands straightened out and our reversals and fields cleared, when we feel the feeling of feel-good, we can trust that this is something that is good for us. We will know if something resonates with us and feels good, that it is good. You will just know. You will feel the resonance. The good feeling is the feeling of energy in a harmonic state with itself. The bad feelings, the icky, yucky feelings, are disharmonic energies. So if you put a reversal and a reversal together, they actually harmonize, and it feels good. And if you put the positive parts of your template together with a substance that is good for you, those parts will feel good as well. So right now we have parts of each, about 2/3 feeding our reversals and about 1/3 feeding the good part. Once we are clear and carrying Christos energy, we will feel disharmonic with something if it is not carrying Christos energy. But we will also be able to harmonize with it. We will be able to heal whatever its twist is. Where is the love? Many of you, this is what she's doing here. The author is addressing the group of people who first encountered these teachings. Many of you, upon encountering the MCEO teachings of the inner Christ, immediately recognized and embraced the magnitude of absolute unconditional love that is embodied within these teachings. Others have cried, "Where is the love?" In truth, this is a projection of an inability to identify, perceive, or feel genuine absolute love onto the guardian alliance, accusing them of being unloving, because they return to us the gift of truth, revelation, and differentiation. A Christic truth that inherently returns one to the necessity of personal responsibility and accountability. So when they're saying, where is the love? They're saying, you don't really expect me to accept personal responsibility and accountability for everything that happens in my life, do you? Yes. Here, we have been gently guided back unto ourselves and to the innate power, love, responsibility, and accountability of the God source within. To those of you who might sound this cry, might we say, the love is all around you and within all things. It is within every molecule of all creation, within the eternal and perpetual absolute love of God's source, within you and within all of creation. Absolute love simply beams from every page of the knowledge we have returned to you, and through each cell of those whom we have elected as our earthly representative speakers. The effective question, dear ones, is not where is the love? It is why can you not feel its presence? If you ask yourselves the latter question, instead of hiding within the self-denial implied by the former, you have taken a first step in recognizing the present absence of the frequency of absolute unconditional love within yourselves, an absence which you project outward onto an innocent, love-filled, manifest creation, obscuring your own ability to perceive the love that is always there by the distortion lenses of your own perceptual filters. You will see, know, and touch the absolute love within others, within us, our works, our representatives, within the external hologram, and within the very fiber of creation, when you apply free will choice to discovering, allowing, embodying, becoming, being, and freely giving the divine, unconditional God source love within you, which you can only accomplish through recognition, respect, and reverence for the living God source within. As long as you deny the vitality of the living God source within you, you will be unable to perceive or receive the genuine love that is given to you by others, by the universe, and by God source. The answer to the question of where is the love is the sincere affirmation that I am the love, and a firm commitment to embodying through action, thought, and creed this eternal Christic ideal. When you choose at-one-ment with the living God source within you, you will know the love. You will be the love. You will embody the love. And thus you will see reflected everywhere around you the reality of the love that is the foundation of all creation. The degree to which you recognize and embrace the eternal love of the God source within you will be the degree to which you are able to identify, experience, recognize, and embrace the eternal love that is always present within all aspects of your external hologram. They've always been there. Some things to ponder. Take a moment and look around at your hologram. Take a mindful look at creation around you? Can you see or feel the beingness within all creation? Can you see or feel the love? I don't know about you, but I can. I certainly can. And some suggested affirmations. I am the love. I now embody through action, thought, and creed the eternal Christic ideal of I am the love. I embrace the eternal love present in my hologram now. Love and manifestation. When you think a thought, when you tell yourself something in your mind, the words you choose, you have just created something. The words themselves are a creation. The words themselves have energy. That means they have a light and sound patterns. That means they have a scalar pattern. Scalar wave templates are the things that first come into being that accrete other frequency to fill themselves out in matter. We are creating manifestation somewhere, either in our bodies or in our life out here, with every word we tell ourselves, either mentally or out loud. We can change our life. If you do not like the job you're in, you can change this. If you don't like the house you live in or the country you live in, you can change it. The least useful way to try to change something is to go after it three-dimensionally or horizontally. Realize it is your inner thought that created your hologram out here, and put your consciousness back inside. Find the energy pattern of the thing you are trying to change and change it in energy. This is where you start. Everything begins with a thought. You also learn that there is a specific responsibility of manifestation. It is good that things do not leap out of our heads instantaneously. There is about a 3-day lag before it starts to filter down into what we are manifesting and begins to circulate back through. From the time we think it here, pull it through, and then it spits itself back out into the hologram. If it was instantaneous, imagine all the things you might have created already. We have to relearn what we once knew, and that is how to manage the energies of our emotional bodies, which is not easy to do. We created as human beings, created as indigos, were created out of love, from love, through love, and of love. We have a responsibility, if we want that quality to remain expressed and manifest, to embody it, hold it, be it, perpetuate it, just like our Creator did. With love as a responsibility, it really gets easy where you just ask yourself, am I acting out of love right now or something else? Could it be revenge? It might be fear. It might be anger. It might be depression. And it might be absolutely justified because that other person has no right to do this to me. However, no matter how horrible the situation, if we can remember to remind our 3D minds to look for it, there is always an expression of divine love. Always. And some things to ponder and think about. How would you go about embodying holding, perpetuating, and being love. Today, take a moment and practice looking for the divine love within all situations. It can be done. It is possible. What do you want to change in your life? What is the inner thought that keeps your hologram in manifestation? Try sending a spark of your consciousness into the energy pattern of what you are trying to change, and change it in energy. Some suggested affirmations that you speak aloud, called linguistic template reprogramming statements. I am divine love. I create always through divine love. Love and the Skype rooms. And I adapted just this section. Originally this was addressed to the e-groups, but I'm talking here because I imagine that most of the people who are listening might be Nexus affiliates. So this is called Love in the Skype rooms, but this can refer to any online group or any group with which you share information. There are those with a strong passion for the freedom teachings who can spot agendas quite easily and often respond to agendas rather than individuals. We work diligently to keep those agendas out of the Skype rooms and sometimes get a bit angry when they appear. The question we ask ourselves is, are we setting boundaries, or are we stepping out of the attitudes and responsibilities of mastery? There are those who believe that all agendas should be allowed in a room that is dedicated to the Nexus mission. Nexus management and our leaders have a similar thought on this. Love and respect all, but don't take any crap. People have different approaches in addressing an issue. Some tough love, some soft love. People who approach with tough love are sometimes labeled as bullies, disrespectful, spreading poison, etc. The truth is, love is love. Whether love comes from your dog or from your spouse, love is love. Whether it comes in a soft way or a hard way, love is love. For every post that stirs a pot, there are at least 12 offline comments about how terrible that answer was and 12 offline comments about how wonderful it was. This is again about the human need for opinions. Oftentimes things appear in the rooms from people who are just having a bad day. And then the art of detachment and allowance can be a fun one to practice. Obviously, there is a lesson for us all in every post, and a risk of stepping into judgment with our reactions. Reaction to a post is sometimes an indication of a preference or a style, at least from what we have observed, and from what we are learning, a good chance to practice detachment and allowance. There is a time for tough love and a time for soft love. The true art is in knowing when each is appropriate. And truthfully, some people really have a hard time with tough love. Why is that? And I think it has to do with how you feel about yourself, whether you're truly worthy or not. The true art is in knowing when each is appropriate, and that is not always easy. This is an issue that the guardian councils, those responsible for bringing us these teachings, have been wrestling with for several billion years. At-ONE-ment. You know, when I was a kid, this word was presented to me as atonement, which is something you do in response to a sin. Here's another perspective. At-ONE-ment. there can be no real separation between the individual and the God mind. The morphogenetic template of identity upon which individual consciousness manifests exists as an intrinsic and integral part of the cosmic identity structure. And both the individual and cosmos exist eternally within the God mind. The process towards spiritual advancement to attain at-one-ment with God is not a process of recreating a condition that once existed in the beginning and then was lost. Rather, it is a process of progressively expanding one's individual awareness, both outward and inward, beyond the boundaries of personality individuation, to encompass the totality of the ever-present God mind. The journey towards at-one-ment with God, which is described as atonement in traditional religious writings, is in truth a process of expanding into the cognition of I am God, knowing itself as a living expression of this infinite consciousness. Knowing itself as an eternal collective consciousness within which no real separation exists between God and its infinite manifestation. When one expands to encompass the knowing that I am God, one simultaneously understands that all is God, and therefore it does not place the personal individuated identity as above or superior to any other manifestation of the God mind. Humility in reference to all life, not illusions of personal grandeur, are the results of knowing oneself as the I am presence, in complete at-one-ment with God. Something to ponder and think about. Try saying to yourself out loud, I am God. How does it make you feel? Do you feel like, oh, did I really just say that? Oh my God. Does your body contract or expand? Do you feel joy or do you feel like crying? Breathe, and on the inhale say, I am. And on the exhale say, God. On the in-breath, I am. And on the out-breath, God. Continue to breathe while saying, I am God. At-one-ment and absolute love. The only absolute cure for any malady is absolute love. Through the condition of at-one-ment with God, genuine love can be known. The feeling of love is the result of the condition of vibrational harmonization, or the co-resonance of consciousness between the lover and the beloved. Expansion into at-one-ment with God creates the condition of absolute harmonization between the individual consciousness and the God mind, a co-resonance of consciousness between God and the individuated manifestations of itself. In terms of felt experience, at-one-ment creates the feeling of absolute love, unconditional love, the quality of love the God mind experiences towards all of its manifestations, with whom it eternally remains in a state of vibrational co-resonance of consciousness. All things exist within the mind of God, and so the God mind itself exists in a perpetual state of vibrational co-resonance of absolute love with all manifestations of itself. Even parts that we would judge as sick or twisted or evil. The experience of lack of love reflects the condition of non-resonance of consciousness between the individuated manifestation of God and the totality of the God mind. Non-resonance of consciousness, or vibrational disharmony between the individual mind and the God mind, can only be manifested by the individual who has yet to achieve at-one-ment with the totality of itself as a manifestation of the God mind. Personal expansion into at-one-ment, or harmonic resonance with the God mind, allows the individual to transcend all vibrational disharmonics of consciousness, to retain co-resonance with the cosmos. At-one-ment creates absolute love, and absolute love is the eternal vibrational co-resonance of consciousness that holds the structures of the cosmos together. Let me read that again. At-one-ment creates absolute love, and absolute love is the eternal vibrational co-resonance of consciousness that holds the structures of the cosmos together. Absolute love creates the experience of absolute joy and ecstatic fulfillment, and in human terms generates the emotional attributes of all those feelings and sensations deemed as good. All conditions of disease, dis-ease, conflict, pain, anguish, and suffering are the direct results and manifestation of vibrational disresonance of consciousness with the God mind. Some suggested linguistic template reprogramming or affirmation statements. I am in harmonic resonance with the God mind. I am in at-one-ment with God's source. I am absolute love. The eternal light. We are a part of the soul of God Source. We always will be, as long as we choose the eternal light. Eternal light is the only true light, and the other lights will grow brightly, then dim. Eternal light goes always from the darkness to the dim to the bright, and then cycles back again, and goes into the velvet darkness, and returns again and eternally. It is still a light that just stays. It is a light that moves and breathes like the soul of God's source. The teachings we call the freedom teachings are one way of choosing the eternal way. There are others in other systems that reflect the same teachings that these teachings are teaching you, because there is one truth. It is the truth of original creation. It is an encryption and a process, an intention and a love. No matter what truth one may choose to honor or not, that truth cannot be touched or changed. It is the one divine constant. It is the constant truth through which God's source did create and continually creates the universes. We can choose truth that serves to bring in more of the truth to our experience, or we can serve truths that are twisted truths that take us further away from the feeling. The words are only small things used to convey small parts of a greater experience that is spirit. Spirituality is a part of our journey where the words become less and less, and the feeling becomes more and more. As we take this step into the thresholds of the garden, as we begin to prepare ourselves for the ability again to re-enter the Edens, we prepare our Tauren to purge out anything that is not of the eternal original eternal truth. We are preparing for a great celebration. We are preparing for a place where words have their purpose, but they become less and less useful in describing the largeness of the truth that will come on waves of love. Love is a state of co-resonant vibration where two patterns meet and harmonize. They can say words to express that, but it is the wave, the eternal wave of co-resonant vibration that is the truth of love. It is like words are the picture frame around the picture, and the love is the ever-moving picture. We are re-entering the zone of love that will get less and less words and more feeling. Some things to ponder. The eternal truth of the God Self. I am love and I am loved. I am love and I am loved. Love others as you would love the self, and love the self as you would like to love others. I am love. I recognize I am the truth of the all-oneness. And dearest beloveds, I'm going to leave you with that for today. Next week we'll begin with grace. Thank you.